a very good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the first session of the webinar series on digital public infrastructure, which is jointly organized by the Center for Development Policy and Practice and the Digital Empowerment Foundation as part of the lead up to the 8th Digital Citizen Summit. Over the past decade, digital public infrastructure, or DPI, has increasingly shaped the way citizens interact with the state, markets, and one another. From digital identity systems and online payments to access to welfare, education, health services, and government platforms, DPI has become central to conversations on inclusion, innovation, and development. At the time, it also raises important questions around accessibility, privacy, accountability, and who is ultimately being served by these systems. We are pleased to begin this series with today's session titled Digital Public Infrastructure, Who It Works and Who It Serves. The session will explore foundations of DPI, unpack how these systems operate in practice, and reflect on questions of inclusion, access, and governance in the digital age. It is a privilege to welcome our speaker, Mr. Hemant Adarkar, who is a technology advisor and resident senior fellow at Atta Global. With extensive experience working at the intersection of technology, governance, and public systems, he brings valuable insights into how DPI can be designed to better serve citizens and communities. We look forward to an engaging and thought-provoking discussion. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. I would also request that if everyone can please turn on your camera, and over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks, Lubna. And after that introduction, I don't think there is a need for this talk, but since I've been invited, about to speak about DPI. Lubna, can I share my presentation?
Yes, sir, you can.
Can you all see this? Lubna, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Yeah. Hello, yeah. Did anybody say anything? It's okay, right? I mean, I can start.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thanks, Lubna. Thanks, CDPP, and thanks, DEF, for inviting me to speak on this subject. I'm going to provide you facts in next 45 minutes, and you can answer this question, how DPI works and who does it serve. It'll be very clear from the facts that I put in front of you. You will be able to answer this yourself. So the plan of my talk is following. I'll first explain what is digital public infrastructure. Then we'll look at how digital public infrastructure has developed globally, examples in India, and finally, last but not the least, the negative aspects of DPI. I mean the concerns, the questions which are raised for digital public infrastructure by various individuals, civil society organizations alike. So let's go to our first topic. Basically, the origin of this, digital public infrastructure comes from, in fact, you people are mainly here, the policy people who have studied economics in class. I have not. So, do you understand the concept of public good better than I do? So public good is non-excludable and non-rivalrous. And actually speaking, it's a very, very ideal definition of a public good. I mean, apart from a lighthouse in the sea, I don't see any example of public good. But, be that as it may, we have borrowed, the digital world has borrowed this concept. And first step, a lot of people confuse between digital public goods and digital public infrastructure. The digital public goods are open source software components, or free to use algorithms, open standard created by for no commercial gains. For example, HTTP, right? All of you are familiar with HTTP. It's a digital public good, right? Because nobody gets paid for it, though it was developed by certain software developers. But HTTPS are basically are for free use. So they come as uh, digital public goods, right? I mean, that's an example. There are many other examples. And DPI, DPGs can be sort of the building blocks of digital public infrastructure, but not necessarily, they are open source, right? I mean, there are proprietary components which also can constitute a digital public infrastructure. And it will be very clear as we go along in this lecture. Invariably, digital public infrastructure is implemented by state. It's very rarely that a non-state actor, uh, implements a DPI. I mean, there are DPIs which are used, only, I think, the only open source DPI is used in health sector, which will come to. But this, as all of you know, since the state does not have the capacity to implement a big software system. By the way, digital public infrastructure is a software system, right? It is a typical software which is, implement lies on a hardware in a data center, connected through internet pipes and has to be given constant power. So it is sort of uh, implemented by a commercial run IT organization, which, like, the lowest bidder wins the race, right? Which will be, if you look at and we look at such examples in India's case in some following slides. So how, all of you are familiar with this digital transformation, right? How the businesses have become more and more digitized, right? I mean, when we hello, uh, so as let's take off example of Indian banks, right? So Indian banks, uh, in the 70s were purely run on paper ledgers, right? And it would sort of take, say, for a State Bank Guwahati branch to send its accounts to its headquarter in Mumbai. It would, you can imagine how much time it took during those days. And then we you basically sort of automated all these processes. So the uh, so a customer coming to a branch, customer depositing money. This is all written with hands. Now there is a core banking solution. So it is like automation of this basic banking or teller processes, what you can say. Also, one of the most crucial example, for uh, all of us is digitization of public records, right? I mean, if you have visited any of these government offices, you can see paper everywhere, which is gathering dust. And it would be nice uh, if all the records are digitized. But at the moment, the many government organizations follow a hybrid approach that they store both these things. Uh, that, from the simple automation. In fact, there is a beautiful reference on all this in an HBR 2003 article, Harvard Business Review, and it was available on the net. Few months back. I don't know whether it's available, but by a thinker called Nicholas Carr, who says, "Does IT matter? Does IT give you anything beyond automation?" So please read this. It's a good reference, whether you are working for a civil society organization or a commercial organization. So we basically, we started the whole digitization process and integration of different data sets. Okay, and mind you, this data set, when we still talk, is uh, is structured data, right, which lies in various database systems in governments, in corporates, in civil society organizations. I mean, this is much before the social media came into the picture, where we suddenly saw text, speech, and means audio and video files. So the non-structured data also came into the picture, and of course there are technical solutions for that. But you know, the digital transformation of those things are a slow process. So it has led to platformization, right? I mean, this whole effort has led to platformization. So, best example of platformization is the way you order food from various restaurants through a platform, the way you order a taxi through Ola and Uber, right? So it's I mean, there's nothing that none of these platform organizations actually own uh, uh, a taxi, a vehicle by themselves. But, you can solve the uh, I mean, you can sort of service request can be satisfied through these platforms. And of course, there are non-tech aspects which, a holistic ecosystem can be formed. So this is the DPI approach, on emphasizing interoperability. The interoperability is nothing but ability of various systems to interchange data, without any special efforts. In fact, since I have seen all the efforts when the systems were not interoperable, we had to, a system uh, coded in Java could not talk to a system coded in C++. So we had to use intermediate definition languages. This was still 90s. And then there was, of course, a invention called extended markup language, which made the interoperable between various applications simpler. However, interoperability in simpler words can be defined as open and standard interfaces. Open interfaces based on standards, right? I mean, of course, this is a technical definition. There are, if you want to get into the details of interoperability, there's recently I have written an article with the founder of Digital Empowerment Foundation, which is there at the end. What demystifying interoperability, because this is a very loosely term word, and especially by civil society staff and lawyers and policymakers. So, what interoperability actually means is explained. So, please feel free to read that reference. So, for any activity, what we require is an identity, right? You want to do a banking transaction, you should be identified as Hemant Adarkar. You should be able to, uh, carry out any function. You need to sort of pay a fee, or, say, for example, I want to buy Uber. I want to digitally pay the Uber platform to hire a cab. And there are data exchange platforms, and data exchange platform is used for a lot of many purposes. For example, the kind of documentation you require while applying for a loan or for a passport or a visa or a new bank account. There is this you have to submit many of these documents digitally, right? So you need also data exchange platform. So these three, what in India's case is called as the India stack, right? These are the all three. So uh, this is primarily the India stack, and of course, the present government wants to take it internationally, because many countries do lack a national identity scheme. Many countries still do not have formal digital payment mechanisms and data exchange platforms. So, I don't want to dwell too much time on it, because while building any new application, you can sort of uh, harness this uh, uh, existing applications, existing digital public infrastructures. And the DPI approach is, which sort of uses these three factors. One is ecosystem of actors, and actors are nothing but you, me, the customers of a bank, citizens of a country, the service provider organizations, government, banks, who provide payments, etc., etc. So this is the ecosystem of our. And how do they interchange information is decided by a governance framework, right? So and finally, we have this shared digital systems such as, UPI, Aadhaar. Okay, we'll come to that. So, I don't want to read the slide, but please, it is or the DPI approach is sort of based on these positive things like driving development, sustainability, inclusion, innovation, trust, competition, etc., etc. Right? And respect for human rights uh, and freedoms. So, some of the governance mechanisms are listed here. Uh, like the checks and balances that we have in our democratic system, that Supreme Court struck down the certain sections of Aadhaar Act, like which the Aadhaar Act which permitted entities to avail of Aadhaar data, so which only government can use the Aadhaar data. Second thing is this Aadhaar Act came in pretty late, right? I mean, Aadhaar was instituted in 2009, and Aadhaar Act was, came in around 2017-18. When I was talking to the, finance ministry in Bangladesh, there was a question that what are the learnings from India's Aadhaar, right? And one of the reasons I said that we should have begun with a uh, parliamentary legislation. And I still believe that without a legislation, if you do, like Supreme Court has not made non-mandatory. If there was a parliamentary uh, uh, legislation on that, I don't think judiciary would have really been able to. Judiciary have taken so much interest. So the whole idea is that we must have the set of rules. Whether it's just enforced by the government or whether it's these are all civil societies. There should be a sort of governance mechanism. Then where the civil society has contributed to uh, you know several initiatives, of course, with the government being a partner there. One is DEPA, which is we'll come to this, which is which is on which the account aggregator framework is based. Then there is this is a completely not-for-profit organization which has started a Center for Digital Public Infrastructure in the premises of Triple ITB, and it also trains various technical staff, sort of nominated by uh, uh, you know the middle and lower income countries. Framework for document exclusion. I mean, this is like, if an erroneous document or a malicious document is part of that, then there are tools which are, or an unnecessary document, which is irrelevant document, which is completely excluded by digital means. Uh, there is a private organization, think tank, which actually did a survey of how Aadhaar, uh, you know, uh, is being sort of accepted by people, right? And all these things are very interesting. So, this is a sort of a partnership of, DPI is based on a partnership of, and the various aspects of DPI are based on the partnership between civil society and the legislators, policy makers, bureaucracy, judiciary, etc. So, uh, financial sector is a good example. This is a partnership of banks and fintechs and the government. Okay, and government has started a organization called National Payments Corporation of India, called NPCI, which is oversees and which is actually given the mandate to oversee all the payment mechanisms by Reserve Bank. So I don't want to get into details, but uh, you know this can lead to a lot of innovation, except, for example, many, thanks to some of the NBFCs I'm involved in, I realized that, many sort of people in the rural areas do not come under the purview of credit scores. And how do you, give loans to them? So therefore, there must be some alternate sort of credit scoring mechanisms. So, such as the UPI payment, the electricity bills, etc., can be used. Plus there is UPI transaction, which typically demands a smartphone. We'll deal with this later, but UPI 123 pay is also allows people who do not have a smartphone, a feature phone enabled app is can allow you to transfer money. So let's talk about DPIs around the world. Uh, so there is this Estonia is of course one of the very advanced countries in terms of digital transformation, and of course, uh, any of the any person, any software architects who has worked in India, China, and versus rest of the world will understand the difference between the scales, sheerly because of our population. But uh, there is this X road which is created as a public open source software, and you can see that income tax is being paid by in 3 to 5 minutes. So and also almost 10% utilization of the population is involved in using this X road, right? It's like it's also adopted and accepted by the community. Now, Brazil is a government. Brazil as a nation has always resented that, think our global initiatives like taking India to the world of India, India stack and all that, but they have created their own system for payments called PIX, and 161 million people, which is a big number, which is using their instant payment system. Okay, this is DHIS2 is a only, according to me, is the only open source system, and therefore there are global public goods. It's a global public good, and based on this, uh, you know, uh, modules, which are this global public good. It's maintained by University of Oslo, and based on this, many countries, which cannot afford very very expensive health systems. Uh, Many countries have actually designed and implemented their national health systems based on this. In fact, in during one of the projects, we encountered that Colombo University gives, based on this, gives a medical degree, a master's MD in sort of digital medicine. We don't know about many other. Oslo, of course, University of Oslo gives, but it's a very creditable that country like Sri Lanka offers courses. How just somebody a doctor who is a specialist on health management systems, right? So we have spoken to a few guys, and we're very curious that this one, anybody who wants to connect with him, I can give his contact details. So DHIS2 is the only world's sort of global public good. Now let's talk about DPI in India. First thing is Aadhaar, right? And you can read this one, but it also, according to the UIDAI website, 99% of adult population is sort of covered by giving sort of correct identity. And so basically, there is an economic impact, there is improved timelines. In fact, if I remember right, immediately after Manmohan Singh and Mr. Nilekani launched this digital identity Aadhaar, uh, there was an article in Economist which talked about the that have providing identity is not enough. We should also have open same number of bank accounts, right? And everybody should come under the purview of the Indian banking system, right? And that was the noble goal. So there is an economic impact. The leakages, kept happening in. So now there is the direct benefit transfers which are happening. I mean, of course, leakages will continue to happen, but they can be minimized through identifying the beneficiaries. There's this improved sort of, you can see the improvement in timelines of payments, and eKYC costs have come down. You had to give once upon a time you had to give PAN cards, you have to give you know various things. So you can see that from $12 to 6 cents. Yeah, and many sort of regulators themselves are seeing that how this cost can be reduced, right? So that more and more people come under the purview of the Indian financial systems, formal financial systems. Otherwise, I always love saying that Indian financial systems are made by, of, and for upper middle class salaried people, right? So this is something, if you want to take it to the next billion, I think uh, uh, we need some very strong digital interventions. Uh, So definitely, UPI has sort of, one is of course on the economic side. Second thing on the distribution systems, the social distribution system. Like there are uh, of course the subsidized food of 800 million individuals. So, but there are migrant workers, right? I mean, this is a serious problem. Uh, and my eyes were completely opened when I joined this organization, which NCDX, which looks after agri sector. And there are agriculture workers, there are construction workers which move from uh, sort of state to state. Now, therefore, the government of India scheme of one nation and one ration card, right? It sort of uh, you know, purely by showing your Aadhaar card or by stating your Aadhaar number, you can get your ration anywhere. Or, you know, the man in the family travels, say complicated situations, but there are sort of young bureaucrats who would like to solve these issues by, creating good digital solutions for intervention. So this is one nation, one ration card. You can see the staggering numbers, and of course, such numbers are, uh, you know, I mean, something which sort of typifies India. So, of course, UPI includes financial inclusion and especially the feature phone. Uh, uh, if you want to see the numbers, also, uh, in that interoperability article, you can see actually, how much rural India uses UPI and all that. And there is an interesting sort of report done by my colleagues at Artha, Nikita Kwatra and team, about the, uh, it's a survey. They have talked to a lot of people in rural as well as urban India. And, they have, so the the facts which they have unearthed are there for you to see. And so please read that report also. So one is, of course, the financial records are maintained well thanks to UPI. And low value, high frequency transaction is what our country is actually, uh, you know, uh, demands, right? Because, paying for groceries, these are all typical public transport utility bills. They're typically below 1,000 to 2,000 rupees. And, it's a very fast, speedy. It's sort of UPI is based on what is called as IMPS, immediate mobile payment services. But it can be also done through various other modes, even through a branch. So UPI, this is again data taken from NPCI website. So you can sort of go to NPCI website and find more about UPI, the digital payments that they are doing. Okay, we'll of course talk more in detail about this. We talked about data exchange, and safe data exchange. And especially, I'll not go into details, but the new rules of new law applicable, from, I think next year, May, is the Digital Privacy Act, DPDPA as we call it. And, so we need consent for every transaction, whose data are you using. So uh, this is the Open Data Exchange Framework, which is part of the DPI. And these account aggregators can actually pass your data for a loan application. And the moment your loan application is successful or it's rejected, you have a right to ask this account aggregator to remove, data completely, erase your data. It's called right to forget in the DPI Act. So these are all sort of share, yeah, as this says in the bold, that share your data with only with consent. So there is, in fact, there will be a new entities called as consent managers who will give consent on your behalf. It's like almost power of attorney. So GST is another example of a digital public infrastructure. You know, I'll not go into details, but yeah, I have written an article on GST and postal services in one of the newspapers. You can easily get it through Google. So GST collections, I don't want to get into details. Okay, now this is COWIN, which is used for tracking vaccines. Vaccination of how many? 1.4 billion people, right? And it was also, it was sort of allowed that one mobile number could actually suffice for the entire, family of four, right? Uh, and in fact, Covin initially was touted to be open source software, but after, and its sort of source code was uploaded on a platform called GitHub, but, further versions never made public. So, but uh, it definitely kept a sort of a record of vaccinations and which was useful for travel in certain times. And uh, yeah, but at the same time, I must tell you that, the biggest wins in the health sector we have, that is eradication of polio and smallpox were carried out without a single computer being used, right? I mean, that is so, we'll talk about this later. Diksha is a platform, I mean, for education, and you can use QR codes to get digital content, the chapters, topics, and textbooks. ONDC is a new sort of uh, the latest entrant in DPI, and I will go to the next slide where the, just as Amazon or Flipkart, you have one platform, which is sort of consumers and sellers are uh, through meet each other through one platform. It's like similar to Uber also. While ONDC is based on a protocol called Beacon, which is an open network of buyers and sellers, right? And it doesn't sort of, it allows you to buy from various sellers. So it's a very interesting way, and it's also heavily promoted by Government of India. ONDC is an so there's no sort of a single platform, right? I mean, there are, of course, we'll talk about platforms and in some of the later slides, but there is absolutely no sort of, you're not stuck to a single platform. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so these are some of the organizations which write, define standards like, there are two Center for Digital Public Infrastructure which I spoke about, which is in IIIT Bangalore, and my own, I am on the steering committee of the DPI Academy, which is trying to create, capacity, making sort of uh, government especially bureaucrats, policymakers, and train them on various topics in DPI. Okay, you can see that there are uh, open source digital identity platform called MOSIP. There is also, which is doing excellent work in, some of the countries like Morocco and Philippines. And there's another payment, open source payment system called Mojaloop, which is being heavily uh, implemented in Africa. Uh, Okay, now let's talk about, we sort of didn't talk about the we talked about positive aspects about, we didn't talk about the aspects that are being discussed, that are being and many people are telling, are saying that one needs to be cautious about certain aspects of DPI. So the first risk is, there is this privacy and surveillance risk, right? So, the following slides, the top will be very generic, which is applicable globally, and Indian examples, right? So, uh, I can sort of, since NPCI, that all the data goes through NPCI, and even though they might say that it is not, nobody looks at that data, but we know that it is easy. Anybody who has been inside a data center, anybody who has programmed similar systems knows that you can easily track spending patterns. I mean, something which an autocratic government in China does, right? So they precisely know where exactly the money is coming and going and for what purpose. Then linking welfare access with identity, right? I mean that. So it's basically, I buy a ration card, sort of my identity is sort of open. Uh, this is AI-enabled policing, nothing but, using techniques like facial recognition, voice recognition for identifying criminals, using surveillance cameras. And see, this whole data is being accessed by government, so much data being created, so much data being passed on to the government. In fact, one of the Digital Empowerment Foundation discussions, I had said that Indian psyche is such that people do not want to share data with private institutions, civil societies, but they don't mind sharing data with the government. Second thing is that the top, 70 million or 7 crore people out of 140, which is like hardly 5% of the people have Western ideas of privacy. Rest think that if we give the data to government, we might get, benefit of particular scheme. Uh, this is a very serious point. There are DPI actually assumes many affluent, lifestyles, right? Like that, everybody has a smartphone. Everybody has, uh, everybody has, internet connectivity, right? Uh, and there are biometric devices everywhere. Everybody is digitally literate and stable electric power, right? I mean, I think these kind of things don't exist even if you leave the four major cities, right? And maybe even in certain parts of these four major cities. So I spoke about one nation, one ration card, and we hear in newspapers that people have been refused rations because their Aadhaar authentication failed, right? Aadhaar authentication. it depends heavily on the fingerprints, right? And then, many manual laborers have calluses developed on fingerprints on the tip of their fingers, as well as, senior citizens have worn out hands. So, in fact, it's a very interesting thing that a couple who are very, very prominent sitar players wanted to visit their child in son in United States, and they were refused, US visa for because the fingerprints couldn't be done, the biometrics couldn't be completed because they had sort of completely worn out this one thanks to the guitar sitar they were playing for 50 years. Anyway, power supply and poor connectivity, poor power supply. Our population is multilingual, so we can't sort of create applications, create DPI, at least access to application DPI through multilingual applications. And there are serious difficulties. How do I have there is no documentation for certain class of people, especially homeless and transgender. And of course, digital literacy is an issue which we discussed, right? Uh, of course, you know, DPI systems can leak following information, identity, financial information, your bank account, bank balances can be leaked, your health records can be leaked, your biometric data can be leaked. So we have already heard that, Aadhaar, though Aadhaar platform is very strong, secure, but the way software is not just the platform, software is not just the architecture, software is also daily maintenance, right? Software is also backups of software, of the data that it gathers. Now, if you don't have competent people, if you don't have diligent people, this can all go for a toss, right? And or there could be a disgruntled employee, which are typical issues in data leakage in organization, right? So, you know, frauds through social engineering attacks. It's like, social engineering is, some knowing somebody fully well, his date of birth, his name of his children, etc., etc. So I can, sort of assume that identity. And of course, if I'm given a, fake app, which is very close to my payment app or my bank app in terms of name, I can sort of use that app, give all my details, and or I sort of some erroneous link, some malified link. I can lose all my financial assets. There are other concerns which are a bit sort of go into it would be a separate lecture by itself. Concentration of power and creation of monopolies. Accountability and governance means, data governance, uh, accountability of governance, ownership of data, right? I mean, these issues are not being thrashed out, but data ownership, okay, is sort of, for example, Google Maps. The data belongs to us, and data belongs to people who drive on the roads, but Google sort of sells the connection to Google Maps, for various applications. But I mean, when people say data is a new oil, of course, on the lighter side, that if you call data as oil, then a certain country will definitely attack where the data is stored. But uh, there is people who create data don't get any benefits out of that, right? So that is a senior serious issue, and which civil society organizations take it this up, but not yet, there's no serious impact. Of course, there are algorithmic biases that if now, of course, these things have been corrected, but a black person in America, you can see whether that serial still exists on Netflix. black PhD student in America was not identified by a facial recognition system. It only asked for, it only sort of was trained with white people, right? Over dependence of digital system, and this is something which I spoke about, that the biggest success in the public health is eradication of uh, polio and smallpox without using a single computer. And of course, there are democratic and civil liberty concerns because of, you know, state surveillance through DPI. So here are the references. One is, of course, please read the uh, please read this report done by Nikita Kwatra and team, my juniors at Artha. Those who are interested in, those who work, interact with government, should read this book. It's a classic written by James C. Scott. Seeing like a state, that how government, when it looks at a problem, the problem is sort of, uh, it's a very different problem, and they really want to solve the issues. But what happens to that problem ultimately? I mentioned Nicholas Carr. And this is the final thing, demystifying interoperability in digital public infrastructure. This is an article written recently with Osama Manzar. And final question, which was raised to me by a friend at a recent workshop, that good DPI should also allow exit, right? I mean, I didn't say that I want to exit this talk, but a good DPI should allow exit, right? So, for example, we have no exit to Aadhaar. We have no exit to UPI. There's no competition for all this, right? And at least, of course, the accessibility is no competition as far as UPI is concerned, whether to use Google Pay, Amazon Pay, or Phone Pay, etc., etc. But also some people are worried about what happened to the original application which was created by on behalf of the government. By the way, DPI is, the question to you all is, do you know who implemented Aadhaar finally? It was designed by a civil society organization. It was architected by a design organization, but who implemented it? So that's a question to you all. And the real question about DPI is, can society, it's not the question whether DPI is beneficial. DPI is definitely beneficial. But can societies build population scale digital infrastructure without creating surveillance states, digital exclusion, and concentrated technopolitical power? Right? And with that, I end. And if you have any questions, I'll take them. Thank you. Thanks, Lubna. I think I overshot the time, right?
No worries, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I would now request Osama Manzar, founder of Digital Empowerment Foundation, to share his thoughts on this topic. Osama, sir, if you're there.
Hi, hello.
Yes, Osama, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know whether I was supposed to be here to share my viewpoint, but thankfully I am here. And I heard Hemant quite well among the public infrastructure, digital public infrastructure. And while he was talking, about interoperability, I was just thinking what kind of keywords I should search our Google to find out the thought process of interoperability by the technocrats and the bureaucrats and the implementers or the software service providers and I was just searching that how many people have in India cycles. and how many people have bicycles, motorbikes, and how many people have cars, and how many people have, how many people use public transport, and availability of public transport. And it was quite interesting that, the search says that 50% or 56% people of India own a bicycle. But have we seen that there is a road constructed for bicycles, or for the road that we construct for four-wheelers have a bicycle option? No, right? Or even motorbikes, right? So India lacks attitude of interoperability. So it's an approach problem and it's a consideration problem, right? So we make roads every day for four-wheelers in our cities and towns. And the data shows that in towns also, there are more bicycle owners than even the four-wheeler owners, but we don't make the same road available for the bicycles in a manner that they are safe. And therefore, they don't cycle on the road for their work purpose. They only use it for leisure purpose or for no option purpose, or they use public transport. So we have a very strong class approach and attitude, and the caste-based approach and attitude in making the infrastructure available for the people, right? The same reflects on digital public infrastructure. So in digital public infrastructure also, while we have made interoperability almost functional. For example, if I go to the airport, my facial recognition makes me very easily get into the airport, which is interoperable through my Aadhaar and its authentication and my identity and my originality, right? And I immediately go there. Does the same functionality of the interoperability function in rural India for an Aadhaar card owner? No. Because what Hemant said, what exclude people from, let's say, digital public infrastructure? That's the most important. There is an answer in that question itself, right? While you are making interoperability absolutely working, I am not even saying that we are incapable for making interoperability function for digital public infrastructure, because that makes digital public infrastructure functional and available for the larger masses and people. And we have done that. We have found identity. We have found, banking services, UPI. We have found ONDC. We have found many things which works with each other. But the point is, everything that works with each other is also available to the last person, right? Because public infrastructure is for the people, not for elite people, for people. Who are the people? 915 million people who live in rural India. Their Aadhaar card is functional. Their bank account is intact. And still they can't do it. Why? Because that public infrastructure is not available to them, which is bandwidth, which is device, which works in their language, in their orality, and in the places where they stay or live. They have to go 10 kilometers or 5 kilometers, and it still does not function. It is at the mercies of the people who operate those digital public infrastructure ownership and things like that, right? So my input here as far as the digital public infrastructure is that ask a reverse question. How many people have dumb phone, which is like feature phone? How many people do not have a phone or a smartphone? How many people do not have internet connectivity? How many people do not have a bandwidth of more than 1 Mbps or 2 Mbps, which is necessary to have a UPI transaction done? If all this question gives you when I ask how many women in the country do not use UPI, do not have internet, it says 67%. So I'm saying that till those 67% women are in a situation that they can use these infrastructure available to them, we do not have a functional DPI. Right? Making it functional is not the job of the government or the public sector. Making it available to be functionally used by the people is the job of the any public infrastructure availability. Make it available, make it functional. Do not complain that you don't know digital literacy. Do not complain that you don't know English. Do not complain that you don't have device. Do not complain that you can't, you don't have money, and so on and so forth. Despite all that, can I use digital public infrastructure? Does it serve to me? Is the real digital public infrastructure. At the moment, as far as my understanding is concerned, usage of UPI by any person is the real benchmark of the functional DPI, because the transaction is the most important thing. Transaction also decides whether you have a right bandwidth available or not, and the right kind of device available or not, and whether it is available in your area of living or not. If that is functional and available in your area, in your geography, in your location, then I would say it's a functional DPI. And from that perspective, not more than 10 to 20% of rural India have a UPI usage data. That means we still have to make our DPI reach 80 more percent or make it a people-centric or a mass-centric or a real functional digital public infrastructure. Because digital public infrastructure is not a technical facilitation. It is a public facilitation. It's a usage facilitation. That's what I would like to put in. I'm not going into technical and all that because Hemant very clearly defined all the technical aspect, interoperability aspect, each aspect of digital public infrastructure. I am just saying that digital public infrastructure, divide these three. Is digital and infrastructure available to the people, then it's a digital public infrastructure. If it is not, then for me, because everybody doesn't have to be technically sound to use DPI, right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your insights. I would now like to open the floor for questions. We are running short of time, but we will take one or two questions.
Hi, this is Yashwant here.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
bolo,
Yeah.
bolo, sir.
Yes. So, Hemant, one basic question, does DPI has to be non-commercial in nature? Because it is for public infrastructure,
I
you
mean,
don't charge.
no. So this is another point of contention. For example, I would like UPI to be charged. I of course didn't have time to cover that, but charge as per the amount you transfer, right? I mean, or you say that above a certain amount, I will charge you. See, because what are you competing against, right? I mean, you are competing against Visa and Master, right? And in fact, we got UPI, RuPay card,
Correct.
everything, and RuPay card is the only card which works on UPI. Now,
Correct.
now, all these payments, you have to have information security specialists, right? And they are expensive. And where do they,
Correct.
who employs them? Visa, Master, or the foreign banks, right? The top, or the private banks. So I think we should, we should not have a failure
Monetize
of
it.
UPI, because of we cannot afford reach this one. And see the top 200 IT security experts in the world are employed by Visa and Master. There is no doubt about it. But we may not get that kind of quality, but these sort of expensive resources, I think we should fund, and I think we should uh, NPCI should convince the political, because the political people want everything free, right? Which is not right. So it's like you charge something very small for government hospitals. I mean, and in fact, people have this writing, they saying that if something is free, then they don't value it. So you charge reasonably, and poor people will pay also for it, very small amounts. So I think, just we have, I mean, the attitude is that we have given the security contract to XYZ firm. I think is wrong. So,
So are there examples currently where any of the DPI, keeping UPI aside, any of the DPIs have been provided as
compromise.
a service but charged?
Com- I think Aadhaar after a certain while becomes, chargeable. Aadhaar identity. Uh,
Actually, Aadhaar is charged for every mistake that they have not done. For every mistakes. If I write Osama.Manzar and my original name is written in a different way in some other places, they will ask 100 rupees to change that. And then it will find out that there is another certificate that has got Osama Manzar with double dots, or at the end there is a dot or something. Then they will ask to again pay 100 rupees in change. This is 100%, 100 rupees they charge on the counter. Forget about the opportunity cost that they have to go long way to get it done, and the kiosk and the travel cost and the loss of time and the humiliation they go through every time they go to the counter. So if the government can charge for that kind of thing, genuine charging, I don't think government will not, people will not pay. They will certainly pay.
Correct. So then there is, Hemant, a subsequent question. So with that in mind, currently, of course, assuming that DPIs are not charged to the end users or whoever are
right.
using it or transacting through it, if you look at on one side, the commercial cloud providers like Azure or AWS,
Huh.
and the other side, a sovereign cloud created by India, for example. So would you call sovereign cloud created by India as DPI versus the commercial one not DPI?
No, I will not call it, and first of all, I don't know whether any of these systems, our regulators and government will not allow it to be on the cloud. They will make these people buy, this one bare metal servers, and you can use a commercial data center.
No, but if they use a sovereign cloud like India
See,
is
now,
building.
now, the Reserve Bank is making a, cloud system called IFTAS, Indian Financial Transaction, some infrastructure system or something. Infrastructure for financial transactions. So yeah, I think, so whole
That can
point
be
is
called
that,
DPI, maybe.
yeah, that can be called DPI.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any more questions? We have time.
Hemant, one thing that I wanted to say is that the bigger problem of anything that government provides for the people is not about its capacity and capability and even availability. Our biggest issue is that access of the same for the larger masses in the least cost and with the least effort. And that is a policy issue and a bureaucratic issue rather than a technical and technological
Yeah.
structural issue.
No, that is this one. I mean, I think there is an article I've written now. I remember whether it's HT or Scroll. Why do government technology projects fail?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are many issues apart from technology. I mean, they can get a TCS or this one. So nobody, no, does anybody know who implemented Aadhaar finally? It's actually was done by HCL. And this is told to me by the METI top honcho.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's why I said that government implementing DPI with the help of a commercially run IT company.
So
And
even
also,
today, they manage it. HCL manages it, or NC?
HCL made it finally. I mean, they, see this Pramod Verma of iSpirit and many others, they redesigned and architected, and and of course they were involved in testing. But actual implementation, when the many of one of my friends, I'll not take names because this is being recorded, that I'll have to take his consent to take his name. So whole point is that he told me that when the uh, code came, and the servers came to NIC, none of these people were visible,
Hmm.
right? So, implementation is a very different issue altogether.
Correct.
And
And so
that's
currently,
my this one. I mean that is why I talk to civil society organizations, because once somebody who has entered this one data center knows what exactly happens,
yes. And
right? But
currently,
I mean,
it is
yeah,
managed by NIC.
yeah, it is managed by. I mean,
So
I'm
HCL is
sure.
out of it, managed by NIC.
Hey, no, but HCL still might be doing the software maintenance.
Okay, that's what I
I
was
mean,
interested.
the probably the infrastructure monitoring is done by NIC.
One more thing I wanted to add in the DPI discussion, direct DPI discussion, is that when we are talking about digital public infrastructure, the digital public infrastructure will primarily also look at availability of the same to the public institutions, like
Yeah,
schools, like
yeah,
health, like
yeah,
banks, like
yeah. Sure,
public
sure,
lands.
sure.
And like all these institutions, I just searched the Google, I asked that how many rural schools have internet connectivity. It says 80% do not have connectivity at all.
No, it does not have.
So
So
that's a public
this,
institution and that's not available. That means your entire education sector is completely neglected by the DPI.
Osama, the whole point is that this. I mean, this is going back to my point that all we think is, since the systems are made by salaried upper middle class, for salaried upper middle class and for salaried upper middle class institutions, right?
Yeah.
Unless we break that connection, that, how can we be inclusive?
So our next piece
So,
should be
so
our next piece
I
should be
after,
on that
I mean,
digital public infrastructure not available for public infrastructure, public
yeah, no.
institutions.
See, Osama, for example, when I work for some Swiss banks or a British bank, I realize that Indians are we not only we have no banking systems for the poor, but we also do not have banks for rich people. We
Yeah.
have that for exact middle class, right?
We don't have banking for the people. We have banking for the money.
No, we have banking for a particular class.
Yeah, I'm saying that we want their money,
So
people's
suppose
money, but not
somebody has 140 crores, he would rather keep it abroad for the reason that he's not served properly here.
yeah.
Somebody who has no money and who have a lot of money are not catered by Indian banking system.
So Indian banking system caters to the middle layer of the
Upper
system.
middle class, salaried class.
So is that the case with most of the DPIs or?
No. This is
Okay.
this is a discussion
Most of the
beyond DPI.
DPI is even the highest level of elites are enjoying DPI, I would say. But lower is still included. So it's not a technological issue. It's a policy issue, bureaucratic issue, design of implementation issue.
Yeah, with that, I will now close the session. Thank you so much, Hemant sir and Osama sir, for sharing your insights on DPI. We are grateful for your time and the thoughtful engagement with the audience. We would also like to thank everyone who joined today's session as part of our webinar series. And for those who are still interested in continuing this conversation, we would also like you to join us for the World Telecommunication and Information Society Day 2026 program on May 17th, which will be focused on the theme from connectivity to capability, building inclusive digital societies. The session will bring together experts from policy, technology, governance, and development sectors to reflect on the future of inclusive ecosystems. The registration link is available on the chat, and thank you once again, everyone.